thing that I would say is that as a technologist, it's my experience that human nature is human nature, and that we like to communicate with people. I don't think that's, I don't think that's rocket science. So the idea that a friendly person who we establish rapport with can be replaced by anything in technology is possibly a little further away from where we are today than people think. That doesn't mean that we don't establish strong relationships with our technology. Richard Bennett, the technologist, said recently that we hold our mobile phones more than we hold our children, and I think that there is accepted wisdom that the first thing that most people will take out of a building in a fire is their mobile phone. So I think the whole question of relationships with machines and relationships with people, we like to deal with people, but we do attach ourselves to technology. So then the question becomes, can we replace with technology that human experience? Well, I think it's true to say that we can mimic it and we can imitate it, and we can build a reasonable facsimile of it. However, I'm not sure that we can build in the intelligence to actually have meaningful dialogue. So I can teach a computer to do all kinds of very clever things. I can even teach a computer to be sarcastic, or to be friendly, or to be obsequious. You can teach it a great deal. However, our ability to provide intelligence behind that actually understands the context is not something we're at the moment. The other big thing in relation to this is we are now heading towards a war between consumers and those people who own our data services. We collect far too much information, and as we move forward, our digital footprint rather, is it's expanding, I believe, twofold every year currently. So whereas 10 years ago you might not have been able to find out anything about me, today just where I've been, what I'm doing, everything to do with my life, my tweets, my Foursquare, the entire thing, my footprint's getting much larger. And that's great, but I'm not sure that necessarily I'm happy that Google or another organisation is using that in a way that's beneficial to me. It may be beneficial to the advertisers, but it's not beneficial to me. And because I get to talk to a lot of customers, I know that most people are unaware of how much information we're collecting and how much of it we use. So my real concern is this. We invented direct mail and then we turned it into something that doesn't work except for 2 or 3%, which is to say it fails at 97%. We created websites in which people get lost. Okay, we've created retail spaces and that we work very hard at, but not necessarily particularly customer friendly. And in terms of our terms and conditions and the way we do business, we're not exactly very good at being customer friendly. So I currently think that at some point someone's going to think too much about the data that they've got and too little about the customers who own it, and is going to make a mistake that's going to take us even further than the Germans currently have gone, which is to say, yeah, you've had your shot with direct mail and telecanvassing, and you're not allowed to do it anymore because you've irritated too many people. And I think that personalisation and our ability to manage the relationship, simply means that we will probably offend more people, more personally, more effectively, and at a lower cost than we have at any time in our history. What I'd say is this. It's a fantastic technology that we can use to our benefit in all kinds of ways. However, it is a balancing act between people's privacy and people's convenience. So, if I walk into your store and I press a button on my app that says, actually I'm here and I want to be recognised, then it's great. You can facially recognise me, you can bring up my account and you can talk to me as me, taking forward that omni-channel relationship, taking forward that omni-channel experience without me having to give you more stuff or do more things. And there's no doubt that in terms of security and a range of things, that facial recognition technology has a role to play. And especially, although I believe currently some of the emotion stuff doesn't work brilliantly, some of it does work. So the idea that we could pick up on someone in distress in a public place, recognise who they are and send aid to them is a fantastic thing. However, the idea that every time I walk into a shop, that every time I do something, my behaviour is being analysed, my information is being used to fine-tune someone's marketing proposition to me, is something that personally I wouldn't be comfortable with. Now, I'm only one person, and given the number of people on the planet, that's just one view. But what I'd say is that within my experience, people are okay with a certain level of intrusion. People are okay with a certain level of automation. But there is a balance, and what business has got to get better at is recognising that it's the power of the customer that will dictate that stuff moving forward more than anything else. And therefore, the tendency to go ahead and ask permission later is probably becoming much more dangerous than it used to. I love technology and what it does, but I'm pragmatic about it. It doesn't always work, and we don't deploy it in a fantastic way. The story of the combine harvester is a great example of that. We invented combine harvesters to allow us to farm more efficiently, to do stuff, but in effect, the use of combine harvesters turned a large amount of America from the breadbasket of America to the Dust Bowl of America, because we didn't understand the impact when we started. No one set out to destroy farming, they set out to make things better. So we really have to be cautious about this stuff. I don't want a world in which everything we do is watched, everything we do is recorded, because that will kill innovation, that will kill the very thing that's created this world. So I think it is about the balance, and I don't believe anyone can have a fixed point of perfection with this, because I think firstly, experience will change people's views, and secondly, what's okay and what's not okay is a matter of time. What was okay 20 years ago won't seem okay in 20 years' time. Society changes, we adapt as much as technology changes. So I think that's my view. Social media is having a huge impact on retail on a global scale. And the first part of that is that what social's done is allow a new peer-to-peer kind of communication between customers. So, the biggest impact of social is not the use of social by organisations. I'll come on to that in a second. But is the fact that customers are now able to find out what other customers think. And so the biggest impact on retail, the biggest impact on customer service in retail, is the fact that if you get trashed on Facebook and Twitter, then you will lose customers, and there are many cases in which that's actually been proved out. But in terms of people using social media as a means of selling or a means of talking about customer service, it's fantastic. It creates the opportunity for crowdsourcing, where if you have a problem and you tweet it or you put it into the organisation's Facebook page or whatever it happens to be, then lots of customers will come and give you answers to how you make the particular thing work, or what's the best way to deal with a particular process. And there's no doubt that for the retailers who've got it right, social has become a massive channel. And in fact, for one fairly large American retailer that I know, I think that although I think they're probably one of the top 3 retailers in terms of physical space in America, that their online business is now topping that, and a significant proportion of that is driven by tweets and driven by Facebook. So I think that the overall picture in terms of the use of social is extremely positive as a commercial channel. Customers are okay with it. However, getting it right is the most important thing. Get it wrong and you will pay hugely as your customers ridicule you and start up I hate pages. And finally, in terms of basic strategy, it's better to have your detractors engaged with you than out there in the marketplace. So one of the early examples of that was Everton Football Club, who originally there were a huge number of anti-Everton websites where disgruntled Everton fans used to go and complain. And a very clever guy decided that what he'd do is he'd take Everton socially, and all of those websites slowly disappeared over time. And although Everton Tony, as he's known, doesn't comment on football matches, he will deal with things like prices, beer, the things that are wrong with the stadium, the things that are wrong with the experience, the price of the shirts, the price of the tickets, that kind of stuff. And he doesn't get involved in commenting on how people play. And what that's done is that's brought everybody into the community. They've seen a dramatic increase in the revenue from fans, because even disgruntled fans are passionate fans. So I think that there's a huge role for social moving forward, but I don't think that's the single biggest change that we're going to see over the next few years in terms of the technology relationship. The biggest single change is going to be augmentation. The idea of augmented reality, blended into social media, blended into your website, blended into, well, pretty much everything, allowing you to point your mobile device at something and to trigger some kind of action. I think that, earlier when I talked about blended contact, I think that that's going to be one of the tools of blending between the digital world and the real world that's probably going to have a huge impact, and have a huge impact on social moving forward. Well, the biggest trend that I expect to see having an impact over 2014 is probably this thing of augmentation. It's going on under everyone's radar, but meanwhile, IKEA's catalogue has augmented reality. There are a lot of retailers. Coke recently did a fantastic thing with a bus shelter, and that was just to make people buy a particular type of drink. So the idea that you could bring augmentation into your retail space, where perhaps I can point my phone at a particular item, something on the shelf that I like, and I can see a movie about how it works, or I can see the price, I can even order it with one button take. I think that's going to have a huge impact. And the final thing that I do expect to see starting to trial at the end of this year, that ultimately will have the biggest impact, is the idea of scan and take. So the retailers have been looking at this for a while. I know a number of them have had successful trials, and the idea that I can take an item off the shelf, point my phone at it, and then put it into my private shopping because I've paid for it, and therefore not queue up at the tills, is something I think probably 2014 will see the beginning of, and will be one of the next big things in the retail revolution.
Well, thank you for your time today, Morris.
Oh, thank you. I was really pleased to come into Bree. You're one of the few agencies who I think understands just how significant the nature of change is in terms of the retail relationship. And it's always a pleasure to spend time with organisations who think as I do.